Alrighty, so we left off doing the carbon struts, and I was ready to go onto the carbon fiber truss linking. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our 1.2 millimeter rods, and when I do this, I typically like to go from here to here first on both sides, mainly because it provides a lot more strength underneath this control horn area, because you get a lot of flex there after the servo moves around a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to take your carbon rod that you have here. We're gonna start like this on both sides. So you just kind of want to eyeball it, find out how far it needs to be, and then you want it to stick into the foam, and you want it to just barely tap here. And then we'll put a tab there. So let's clip that. Let's clip two of those actually. Let's clip two of those to the side. And so now we'll have two working right here. So let's put a little mark right about there, right above that bevel right there. So let's grab our tabs that we made yesterday. If you didn't make any, make some now. I'm gonna clean off my tip. Put a little dab right over that mark. Both sides. Just tab here. You don't want to go past that bevel edge right there. Now we can take our rods that we just made and make a little mark in the center of the tab and find out how far it's supposed to go. So then now looking at it, it's actually going to go over this this little strut area right now. So what I want to do is I want to make sure it goes into the foam underneath, just so that we get some good strength, and so it's not bothering anything else. So let's put the foam underneath. So now that's in there. That's solid. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little dab of foam on top of that, twist it. Or dab of glue, I meant to say. After doing a few of these build videos, I'm starting to learn I can't exactly talk and build at the same time, but it'll work for now, as long as you get the basic idea. Make a hole here. I don't want it underneath here. Put a hole there. You stick out a little bit, it's not too big of a deal on this side. I made a little bit of a puncture on this side, and it looks a little weird, but I'm not going to worry about it. I won't make it any weirder. As I said before, make sure you're careful about getting a kicker into those hinges, so when you kicker it, you mainly want to get on this side of the tab, and you want to do it kind of pinpoint so you don't destroy anything else, so you don't get into that hinge. So now we've got a nice solid hinge. I follow that one. Oh, because I didn't glue it. I glued it on that side. Well, I glued that one, but I didn't get it through there. Okay. And the second one will have a solid glue joint. Pushed on that, make sure it's flat. Alright, well that's going, let's grab our rod. And at this point, there's no real significance from one side to the other, except for the fact you have a bevel here, and your flat side would be here, and your 45 side would be here. So that's just on mine. I mean, you can choose whichever side you want to do it. I like to do the soft side of the fuselage, but what I want to do is I typically like to put all my carbon on the like when I'm doing a milled foamy, I like to put it on the milled side. But I guess at this point, just pick a side. pick a side and throw it on there. So we're going to go with this side here. So all you're going to do is you're just going to take your rod, you're going to poke it into that first tab you made, and you're going to bring it to, you want to kind of calculate so that you have about, you want to make sure that you have your last one around here, so that you get a lot of forward thrust there. So what you want to do is get it to about right before where the aileron ends. So I mean, it really doesn't matter, just as long as you have a strong elevator and you have no twist from wing to elevator. So or wing to horizontal stab. So it's not really too big of a deal, just as long as it's strong. It also depends on which side you want to put your electronics on, which side you're used to it. Because I like to put my electronics on the opposite side of the carbon. There's a lot of stuff I have to get around. So I've got that one. And you only want to do one side. You don't really gain a lot of strength by doing both sides. It just adds weight, and you can. This carbon fiber is super strong, so you don't have to worry about losing strength there. So when you glue your carbon rods together, if you can see here, I've crossed them, so that way they're glued to each other, not just the foam. So you're going to want to do the same thing here. Bring it past that first mark right there. Mark it with your thumb. And clip it. And so we've already made this mark right here. So you're going to go underneath. And you're going to poke the hole, make sure you've got it stable. And make sure it'll sit there by itself so you can go in there and glue it. Glue these two to each other. Get that first spot on there and then twist it. Make sure you get all that glue in there. And that one looks good. Let's get back in here, kicker. And wipe off all your excess kicker. Grab our rod again. You want to go the distance between the end of the carbon to the elevator stab, right between that, so right around here. And just to make it even. So you want to pop it behind here, behind that first rod that you just made. And you go about halfway. So now that you've got that first one, made that first mark, make sure it'll sit there by itself. Also, when you get down this far, I mean, because from here you only had a few inches, but now that you're going to the second one, you've got a lot more fuse to cover, so you want to kind of just look down it, make sure you've got it pretty straight. And wow, that's polished. I'm not even going to touch it. That's fine. I'm just going to glue it in there, twist it a bit. Although that might have just changed everything, so let me go back and check that really quick. Kicker that. Now you can wipe off your excess kicker because that top layer is hardened. And now, the last part. This is the only spot you want to do any carbon on this side besides this one here. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut two carbon rods the same length, going from right around the tip of the stab, and you make that first mark and go a little bit past the end of this carbon rod here, so that way they overlap each other. You're going to clip that one and clip another one the exact same size, because you're going to do one on the other side. Just so that the elevator remains strong. Don't know where that went. Okay. I'll get it later. So now we want to start, since this is the starting point from where we measured it, we want to go down in there and do the same thing. Over here, when we install it. So now we've got those two there. Let's kick it, twist it, make sure it gets in the hole. A little bit here, twist it. Figure it out. Let's make sure we didn't get it on this side just yet, because that could get annoying when we're putting the next one. So now, noticing a little bit of a twist here. whenever you see something like that, check it, make sure that it's, oh, it's actually fine, it's just the table. It's perfectly straight. I'm not exactly using the straightest surface on the planet right now because it's cardboard, just so I don't get on the table. So what you want to do is you want to stick it kind of like mirror image as you would on this side, and you just want to drop it down to that same spot that you did on the last one. You want to make sure it's square. Yeah. A little bit of glue there. You're good to go. Now the last part to the carbon at this point, before you can flip it over, would be the landing gear. So now that this is done, we can let this be like this. But what we want to grab is we want to grab our 2mm carbon rod. It's the thickest rod of all of them, and it's also the shortest rod. You want to grab that rod. We're going to start on the landing gear now. So mainly what I like to do when I do the carbon landing gear is I'll put a tab right over where the cowling and the wing meet, right over that center, over that carbon spar, just for strength. So let's cut 2 tabs about a ½ inch wide, about the same width of the others. It's not rocket science. Just as long as they're beefy enough. Right over that spar. Wipe it. So now, here comes the fun part. You're going to want to find your landing gear, which I put back in my box. Where did I put my box? So right now you're going to want to get your all 4 of your landing gear pieces. That includes your wheel pants and your whatever you want to call them. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our carbon, and we're going to want to stick it about, if you can see it on this side, angle it for you a bit, so you get a good idea. I want to go directly, directly 90, but what I want to do is I want to go slightly underneath the edge of the fuselage right here. I want to go maybe a quarter of an inch underneath the surface there. So what I'm going to poke a hole right above that spar there, and I'm just going to stick it down, make a little puncture there, and be careful not to push too hard like I just did, or it'll go all the way through. Crud. It's okay, it'll work for now. I'm not too worried about it. Should get a little bit of glue in there. And you can leave it like this, you don't have to cut it just yet. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to grab this little rectangle piece, and we call it, this is actually the landing gear. The wheel pants have a completely different name. So what we're going to want to do is, before we put this piece on, I like to bevel this edge here just so you get something flat up against the fuse there. So remember which side is making contact with the fuselage, and just make a quick little bevel. Just a little bit of an angle so that way you get it onto the fuse. Actually, you've got a nice glue area. And what you want to do is, at this point, you don't want to glue it just yet, but you want to mark it to where it's supposed to be. Just put your fingernail there. And and just clip it. Alright, so now what we would do is we would come in here and glue it like this. So what you're going to want to do is bevel your flat bevel you just made, or glue your flat bevel you just made, and then glue this this leading edge right there. And if you look at them, there's a little bit of a stagger. So right here would be 90 degree, and then down here is where it's kind of angled. So you want this 90 degree going forward. So you're going to glue that bevel first, and do that leading edge. Here comes the fun part. Just stick it right up against there. Right up against the carbon. And if you can do it again, you can glue on your hands, just sort of pinch it on the tip as well. And then kicker that leading edge. Wipe off your kicker. And let's grab the next one. So you're going to go back to that carbon. You should have plenty for this. And you're going to poke a hole right in front of it. Or behind it, or... Now you're going to do the same thing you did on the last one. Poke a hole. Don't push too hard, because if you go all the way through, it just doesn't look pretty on the top. So, put a little dab of glue in there. Kick at that. And now, what you want to do is you want to get some glue in between where these two carbon pieces meet. So, just put a little drop of glue in there. Look at it from the front, make sure they're both what do you call it? Make sure that, like, I don't know, I would draw it out for you, but I mean, it's not too big of a deal. Just make sure that they're both kind of at the same height, or that they cross each other right in the center of the foam. So now we're going to bevel this side now, because that's the spot that goes up against the foam. So we're going to just make a quick little shaving. If you want to take more time, just make it nice. Go ahead and take a ruler and just do a nice little bevel there. See, like my knife is getting a bit dull. So yeah, it's just going to, there we go. Move that away. So we're going to do the same thing we did on this last one. You're going to want to put a little bit of glue on that bevel and a little bit on that leading edge. And now, so I've got it here and I've got it here. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to butt it up right against that, right up against the carbon and the fuselage. The reason we use rods at this point for the landing gear instead of strips, I used to see strips being done for landing gear on earlier kits. You know, the reason that we used to use strips is because when you put them right up against each other like this, they wouldn't be so offset. And it does look a bit weird this way, but the thing is when you have flat carbon strips and you make a hard landing, that strip just creases right in the center, and it just frays, and then you have to go back in there and put a new piece in. But with the rods, they have a little bit more of a flexibility to them, if you can see this here. And so when something happens, you don't just go and rip your carbon rod. So now what we're going to do is we're going to clip this to size. Now that we've already glued that, and just clip it right up against that edge. Now let's just check it really quick, make sure it's flat. So, as you can see, it looks perfect. There's no angle to it whatsoever. It's got a nice tall stance. And the taller the stance, the better, because you get it's a lot easier on takeoff. If you're doing, I think I'm actually going to end up putting wheels on this plane because I fly a lot of outdoor stuff with this one. So I'm going to go grab some wheels for this one, and then I'll be back. We'll add it to the next video.